Welcome to the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got RT Young. Hey, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and of course, head to Inside Texas. Join for just $1. Get all the best Texas Longhorns info on the team, on recruiting, on everything. Join the best Texas Longhorns community, and you'll get a full year of access to the athletic to go along with it. Of course, if you have not yet, buy Paul Wadlington's Thinking Texas Football. Every position, every player, every opponent, every SEC team, a look at the landscape of college football. And then, of course, a look at the 2025 class from our guy, Eric Naline. That is also in the description. So click that first link, join Inside Texas, and go down by Paul Wadlington's Thinking Texas Football. But today, RT, we got to talk a little bit about some, off-field stuff. Chris Del Conte, he was signed through 2030. Now he's about to be pending Board of Regents approval this week. He's going to be signed through 2036. We're primarily focused on football. I know you and I love watching everything Longhorns, whether that's men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball winning a national title. Can't say I've watched a ton of swimming, but it's always nice to see the tower lit #1. But Texas, it has their athletic director for the next decade plus. And as a result, there's a lot of stability in a time when college athletics are very unstable.
Yeah, it's super exciting that Chris Del Conte is locked up. My first thought was I was calculating how old I was going to be in 2036, and that kind of gave me a moment of pause there. But excited Chris Del Conte will continue to be in Austin. Obviously, he was a welcome change from his predecessor. He's done a great job at uniting Texas. I always like what he says, that a united Texas is a reckoning. You can tell that he really believes that, which just the way that he's gotten coaches swimming in the same direction, the way he's united administration and coaches and fans, all the work that he's done as far as the game day atmosphere, stuff like the Moody Center, just all the improvements that he's made. Super exciting to keep him around. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome looking at his salary too, comparing that to college football coaches from, 10 or 15 years ago. CDC is going to be a happily paid man.
Yeah. And I think he was not too long ago, or at least maybe when he first started out, like just above $1 million, something like that. And to see him, going into the next decade and making over $4 million, you kind of wonder maybe like, why are you paying him this much? And, why are you extending him all the way through, 11 years from now? But to do this means you don't have to worry about it. And there's, can you put a price on that? Well, maybe, and maybe we're looking right at it, but maybe that's the price you pay. And that's worth it when, you don't know what the next round of the college football playoff looks like and how big it is and what it looks like. You don't know. I just texted a friend that book that came out a few years ago, The Club, about Premier League soccer and how they broke off. I feel like we're still living that part of college football, and that's that whole sport and college athletics is still in a process that looks a lot like that happened to the Premier League in the early 90s. Like, I really
what the club was all about was about, you had the 6 or 7 guys of influence who got invited to a room to think about, hey, why are we getting the lion's share of this? And you want to be sure that you're one of those 5, 6, college football's case, 12, 18, maybe bigger than that, 36 people in the room. And obviously Texas is Texas, but you want to, and so they're going to be invited no matter what, but you want to make sure you have a well-liked, a well-respected, and a seasoned veteran in that room, somebody who was around for the most recent round of realignment when Oklahoma and Texas joined the SEC, somebody who was around and saw all of these different changes. So I love the club comparison. That was a great book. I read that about a year before the SEC breakaway. And I remember thinking in my mind, could Texas do something like this? And obviously I was thinking more of like the go independent route, or does college football, does need to just break away from the NCAA entirely at that time. Really didn't have the SEC on my radar, sort of gave up those hopes back in around 2014, 2015, because it seemed like the Aggies were never going to let it happen. But yeah, getting somebody like CDC in that room is what you want to do.
And I'm glad you mentioned the SEC move. That was a lot of it was done by that Texas Power triumvirate. Was former UT President Jay Hartzell. It was Board of Regents Chairman Kevin Eltife. It was Del Conte. That trio was key in getting Texas into the SEC and also getting Texas into the SEC a year earlier than anticipated. We all thought this would be, well, maybe not we all thought, but contractually, this was going to be the first year that Texas was going to be out of the Big 12 and into the SEC. Then ended up being last year. A lot of that credit goes to Del Conte. It's just, like I mentioned, you're paying for stability, and what you see on the screen is the price for that. But you're also getting the successes too. The Directors' Cups. You're getting, national title contention in nearly every sport. And then if you're a football and men's basketball only type of fan, which I completely understand, you've seen football go and make a change under his watch. You've seen men's basketball make one change that was a little bit, multiple changes. He hit the home run with the Beard hire. It's just Beard couldn't keep his end of the bargain. Rodney Terry kind of had to hire him. And then he goes and makes a good hire in Sean Miller. And then, of course, Sark, we've seen what Texas has become under him. By all accounts, if you're a one-sport Texas fan, a two-sport Texas fan, or an all-sport Texas fan, Chris Del Conte has done a lot of great things for this program that you pay attention to.
Yeah, he wants every sport at Texas to be competing for national championships and be around a top 5 finish. And I think for what people criticized Texas for a long time was that Texas can get a little bit behavior resembling a fat cat, and they can be a little bit prone to malaise and slumber and things like that. And I really liked Rodney Terry. I don't know if I had been in CDC's position, could I have made that move? I'm not sure. I had to fire people back in my old career, but it typically weren't people that I liked very much. Hope they're not listening. I don't think they are. But regardless, I think that CDC showed that even somebody who on its surface, like Rodney Terry, was successful, made the NCAA tournament, that's somebody who probably would have flown for a lot longer in the previous regimes of Texas. That's not going to cut it for CDC and his standards of what he wants each each sport within the athletic department to the heights he wants them to reach to, especially not one which is with as big of a status as men's basketball.
Before we keep going, got to show some love to one of our sponsors, and that is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512, or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description, as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
We'll keep going. Steve Sarkisian talked today on Monday, and I think, when you speak on Saturday and you speak on Monday, it's like, is something going on? But it's Texas mock game week. And I think even for Sarkisian, that means practicing on Monday morning, going to his press conference at 11:30-ish, getting in the routine for the upcoming game. They have the mock game this Saturday. And what that basically is going through the motions always has a negative connotation, but kind of going through the motions. It's getting to the facility, suiting up, going through pregame warmups, having a scrimmage of sorts. If Trevor Gooseby loses a shoe and loses his helmet, has to come out for a play, how does a player go in there? Probably Jaden Chapman. How do you get ready for that? If you have 0 timeouts left, you got to kick a field goal and the clock's running with 25 seconds on the clock. How do you go and get that ready? So that's what they're getting ready for this week in the mock game. But Sark also gave some interesting updates Talked a lot about the offense and some of the players that have done well, especially some of the younger receivers, Dalen McCutcheon, Ryan Niblett, who I know is not a younger receiver, Michael Terry, Jamie French, Kalik Lockett, and then also talked about some of the successes on defense, namely the Hero Canoe blocking a field goal on special teams, the defensive tackle rotation with guys like Murad Watson, Alex January, Travis Shaw, even Lavon Johnson got a mention. There was a lot to pull from that press conference, but I think the one thing that I really liked him talking about was preparing for Ohio State and how do you prepare for Matt Patricia. And I think last year we kind of learned that you, as a program, especially that type of program, when it's Ohio State, you kind of have what you have. You know, Ryan Day has a defense that he likes, even as an offensive head coach. He's got a system that works. He's got players that like that system. Matt Patricia's not going to come in here and march in and do something drastic. But I did like that Sark goes like, I'm watching Lions film. I'm watching Patriots film. I'm watching Eagles film. I'm watching, stuff that he did a long time ago for the Patriots, for Bill Belichick, just to try to find that tendency ahead of their first game in a couple weeks.
Probably not watching too much offensive coordinator Matt Patricia film from the Mac Jones experience. That was when you knew things for Bill Belichick were starting to get weird. But anyways, I think that the mock game is super important to go over all those situations that you mentioned. Wildlife coming on the field. Do we remember when the fox ran on the field at OU? You got to be prepared for that so you can, Manu Ginobili style when he slapped the bat out of the air, getting sidetracked. But one thing that I was thinking about during his press conference today was during fall camp, almost like unless you're just a super young player, maybe at a very deep position, what guys haven't been mentioned? And we don't need to go through those names, but one person who you mentioned and who I saw when I was reading the transcript of the press conference, Lavon Johnson, that was somebody who hadn't gotten a shout out so far in this fall camp. And he was someone who came to mind of, he's a transfer. He's played a couple seasons in college football for Maryland. I wonder why he hasn't gotten a shout out. I think I've been asked about him on the board, and then lo and behold, he gets a shout out today. Really encouraging with the tackle depth concerns on that second unit for a kid like Connor Stroh to get a shout out. So I think, I don't think Sark does the thing that maybe Mac Brown used to do, where he would just essentially be mentally reading the entire roster in his mind and giving every single player a mention. He doesn't do that. I think things are earned in Sark's program, at least as far as who gets a mention. I mean, you noticed last year until I think that Kentucky week, you didn't hear anything about Sadir Mitchell, who's no longer with Texas. But when he did finally get mentioned as having a good week of practice, he played in that Kentucky game and had a big stop. So I think there's reasons why Sark brings up guys in the media. I don't think it's a game or gamesmanship with him, but it's also just so encouraging that you can go through the roster and find very few names who have been in the program for multiple years who haven't been mentioned so far in the last month.
Yeah, I do kind of think about that as well. It's like, who have we not written about? What have we not written about? Like I kind of say all the time, like I like to go to the arch well responsibly. Like, he's the starting quarterback, but I don't want to write the whole, arch shows. Like, he was at Dirty Martin's the other day. I could write the Dirty Martin, or Arch was at Dirty Martin story. But I just don't want to overdo that. I do want to know how he's handling the offense and doing in pre-snap and in operations. And Sark talked about that, and I thought that was important. But I did really, really like the question he got asked and the answer he gave about, who are some players that maybe you didn't – I'm putting some words into Anwar Richardson's mouth here. It's like, who are some players maybe that you didn't trust last year that you do trust now? And he mentioned Spencer Shannon, who we've heard is basically tied into a Jack injuries, Jordan Washington, Parker Livingstone, who barely played at all last year and now may be in the starting lineup, Ty Anthony Smith, who's pushing Leon Golafau, Alex January, Wardell Mack, Kobe Black, Xavier Filsamy, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, like that group and that answer, it was really refreshing to hear because it says, like, look, it's not the same process for everybody. Like, not everybody's Colin Simmons who comes in and can play starter level snaps right away. Like, Connor Stroh showed up at, I think he was at least 350. I don't want to get any more specific because I don't know exactly, but I know he was over 350 pounds. And I think they probably looked at him and said, your playing weight is not over 350. Like, you got to work on this. You got to work on this aspect of it. And he did. And now he's the type of player that Sark can mention alongside, other kind of co-starters with Spencer Shannon, Parker Livingstone, Kobe Black, and be like, okay, these are some players that can, probably be utilized in a real game in real situations this year where we couldn't do that last year. And it's always good to hear that type of progress, I feel like.
And the other encouraging thing to me is a lot of the guys he mentioned, we know are talented. It's guys like Ty Anthony Smith and Kobe Black who popped last year. Ty Anthony Smith had an interception, played really good in spots, had a couple key stops. Kobe Black obviously should have had a pick six against Vanderbilt when he got on the field last year. I remember seeing him for the first time and just seeing him run out onto the field and not knowing necessarily what position he was going to, and just seeing this giant number 6. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what defensive end is that? I mean, he looks like $1 million. And I think what you're saying too about the Arch effect, like, can you imagine if Arch was here in 2021 or 2022 and compare that, not that he would have really come to Texas at that time probably, but you compare that to Bijan and Roschon at the time, where in a lot of ways it was just how many anecdotes can you get in about how good of a person Bijan is. I mean, it was kind of a Sark cliche. He's a better person than he is a football player. And it was just all the things Bijan was constantly doing off the field. Not that Bijan shouldn't be celebrated for that, but there was very few things in the program in 2021 besides him and maybe Roschon and the emergence of Xavier Worthy, some other guys, a couple of talented but raw defensive linemen that you could really celebrate. Overshown, obviously. But yeah, I think comparing how far it's come is pretty awesome.
And there's a crutch aspect to it. Stark's going to talk about Bijan because Bijan's easy to talk about.
Yeah.
But the fact that we have this kind of like, oh, they're just now getting to Levon Johnson and just now getting to Connor Stroh. There were a lot of names that they got to that Sark had to get to before they got to that point. But all those names above them deserved mention. Whereas in 2021, it was kind of just Bijan, Roschon, Worthy, intrigue with Card and Thompson. Like, it's a lot different process with going down the roster this year as it is compared to previous years. So
Casey Thompson, film watching anecdotes.
Yeah.
Big cinephile.
25 hours of film in a day. What about Sark talking about Julian Sayin? We saw Ohio State named him as their starting quarterback over Lincoln. I've heard it's Lincoln Kienholz. Texas recruited Sayin really hard out of the 2024 class. By the time this video comes up, I should have some insight on him from some sources that I talked to that recruited and scouted Sayin at various programs across the country. Ian Boyd said it pretty well in one of our group texts. He said, kind of looks like Bryce Young. And I can buy that comparison. But Steve Sarkisian, who got the chance to coach Bryce Young, although not in his Heisman campaign, didn't make that comparison. But a lot of the things he said about Julian Sayin kind of sound like the current Carolina Panthers quarterback.
Yeah, he's obviously a little bit undersized, but I mean, I think he's going to be really good. He's going to be dangerous. But if you're going to play somebody like that who has Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate as his weapons, you want to get him in his very first game when they're still trying to figure out their tackle situation. Obviously, they're returning their whole interior line, but their tackles are still a little bit of a question mark. And you getting Colin Simmons and Trey Moore and Anthony Hill to play someone in their first game, it doesn't matter who they are. That's that's enticing. He does have the benefit of the doubt of, besides his high school tape and Sark's own evaluation and scouting of him, you don't have the game tape of him in Ryan Day's offense to go off of. But you know that Ryan Day is someone like Sark, who he has a system, and you really study the system maybe more than you do the player. But I think he's going to be really good. Obviously, Ohio State and Ryan Day have a long track record of guys who have gone to the league, competed at a high level for the Buckeyes. But hey, if you're going to get him in this first game.
Trying to see maybe the juxtaposition when you think about 2005. Troy Smith played in that 2005 game, and I'm trying to see. Yeah, he was the same recruiting class as Vince Young. It looks like that 2002 class, top player, but they went with Justin Zwick. And granted, redshirt freshman compared to when Vince, he would have been a redshirt junior. Redshirt freshman for saying Vince was redshirt junior. Smith, I guess, would have been a redshirt junior as well. I'm trying to make a comparison that isn't there. It's a lot different though when you have a redshirt freshman in there. That's, I guess, the point I'm trying to make. Did
Sane actually arrive at Alabama? Did he spend?
He was there for the week in between the Rose Bowl and Saban's retirement.
Okay. Because I was trying to think exactly what year he was and if he ever actually arrived on campus. And obviously that was even, an interesting transfer, not sticking it out with Kalen DeBoer, who's, a offensive wizard as well, like Ryan Day. So I thought that was interesting at the time. Not that it necessarily means anything. He probably was just more comfortable from the recruiting process with Ohio State and with Ryan Day. But does Ian think he's going to be as slippery as Bryce Young? Because not that Bryce Young was super mobile necessarily, but Texas fans will remember well. I mean, he was very slippery in college. And I don't know granted, I haven't watched Sane highlights or tape in a couple of years since Texas was recruiting him, but I don't remember him being that kind of player. He had more of a zippy arm, I feel like, rather than just being super slippery, super shifty like Bryce Young was.
Accuracy, I think, was his big strength. You can have processing as a strength in high school, but it only goes so far when you're, making the jump from even high-level high school to some place like Bama, Ohio State, or Texas. But, he was rated as highly as he was, despite being, probably 5'11", 6 foot, probably, 190 or so. He has the arm to overcome maybe some of those physical limitations that we see out of him. So that's going to be an intriguing matchup just because Texas recruited him. I think that's probably where most of the info on him is going to come from Texas. We saw him camp. We know what his brain is like. We know what his physical ability is like. We haven't seen him play much in scarlet and gray, but at the same time, you have to go with what you know. And Texas has a good amount of info on him compared to last year when they were going over the different Michigan quarterbacks. And it didn't matter that much because none of them could throw the football. This guy can. So going to be a fun storyline to track as we get closer. And Ryan Day, kind of as he always does, makes that decision about 2 weeks out from the season, makes the announcement, tells people where the quarterback battle is. And now the whole program can get behind one guy. So we got to get behind one guy too. That is David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kipling on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
One other thing to talk about real fast, AP released its All-America team in the preseason earlier on Monday. No Longhorns made the offense. That's fine. Makes sense. 3 different Longhorns at 3 different levels of the defense made the first team defense. You had Colin Simmons get the nod alongside Dylan Stewart at edge. You had Anthony Hill get the nod at linebacker. And as defensive back, so they have a cornerbacks category, they have a safeties category, they have a defensive back category. Michael Taft gets that honor. Sounds about right. No Arch on the first or second team. That's okay. Feel like they picked the right guys for the Longhorns on preseason All-American representation.
Are you a little surprised that they didn't go with the familiar name and put DJ Campbell in at guard?
No, because the Penn State guy is I'm going to butcher his name, Oliva Vega Ione. Like, I don't know who that is, but I'm going to assume a 4th-year Penn State O-lineman on that team is fine. And I do know that Armaj Reed Adams is a dang good football player over at Texas A&M. So that doesn't surprise me. And then the second team offense, you had Caden Green at Missouri and Keelan Rutledge at Georgia Tech. Like, those are 2 deserving guys. And, you know, one of the other things is DJ Campbell didn't really pick up any – and this is from the AP, so it's from a collection of voters, kind of similar to the 60-ish they have for the AP Top 25. They do the same thing with this All-American team. And I bet a lot of them look around and see, okay, who was first team all conference last year and coming back, and DJ Campbell wasn't that. So I'm fine with that. I'm looking at some of the players on this list. Texas is going to face at least some players like Reed Adams at A&M, Jake Slaughter, the Florida center, Eli Stowers at Vanderbilt, Jeremiah Smith. And they've seen some of these players too, Jordan. They didn't see Jordan Tyson, but they saw they saw Cade Klubnik last year. They are in the same conference with Caden Proctor. They're going to see some guys like, they saw Peter Woods at defensive tackle last year. Leonard Moore and Jamon McCoy, the cornerbacks, they're Texans, one from Round Rock and one from White House. So they've a lot of these names should be pretty familiar for Texas fans as they look through the first team and second as well as the second team.
Yeah, that's a big Dylan Thieneman bump for someone who was on the worst team in the Big Ten last year in Purdue. Obviously, they must have really liked his Boilermaker. And I know he was a big transfer. Texas had early conversations with him. It's just an interesting choice there. No Ryan Wingo love. I get it. No DeAndre Moore love. You're probably going with the guys that are a little bit more proven from a stats standpoint with this list, more so than projection, which signifies Arch Manning's exclusion as well. But I don't know. If I was doing it, I would probably project a little bit more. That wouldn't just go for Texas players. It'd just be, who do I think is going to be good?
The one thing that I'm upset about is Harold Perkins Jr. does not deserve to be on this list. I know he's super talented. I know he's an athletic freak, but he's coming off an ACL where he only played in 4 games and he doesn't have a position. And we can keep hyping him up until he becomes a 3rd-round pick based off athleticism. But there's nothing. I like Torian York being on the second team way more than I like Harold Perkins being on the second team, because Torian York's actually can do a lot of things as a football player that Harold Perkins can't, and he did it for most of last year. Like, it's a little bit of a hater message here, but Harold Perkins should not be on this list.
I was listening to McShay last week talk about their 2026 draft, like an appropriately early mock draft, and they had Harold Perkins going late 1st round. But they were talking about the Arkansas game from his freshman year when he was really playing edge and had 4 sacks and was the reason LSU didn't get upset in Fayetteville. And I was like, man, has any one player ever benefited so much from just one game as him? I was thinking of like Malcolm Williams in Texas back in the day that just got burned in the Longhorn fans' minds. what he did in Lubbock, to where they could always, they just always expected that to return. And I was like, it almost would have been the effect of, had Quinn not come back for a year after that first half against Alabama. And I think that's how people would have talked about Quinn. I really feel like Harold Perkins gets that treatment a little bit. Extremely, supremely talented athlete, but yeah, he's now played 3 different positions, and I think he's just getting a lot of credit from one game from his true freshman year.
I want to see him play a position, and having Whit Weeks is going to help him. Having the Weeks brothers is going to help him, but he's got to do it himself. That's what I really want to see. But Taft, Simmons, and Hill, 3 great additions for the Longhorns to make that All-America team. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Of course, you also need to head to InsideTexas.com. You can sign up for $1. It's the first link in the description. $1 will get you the best access to Texas Longhorns football intel, recruiting, insight, and the best Longhorns community. You'll also get a full year of The Athletic as part of your subscription. So go to that first link in the description and then scroll down a little bit. Go to Paul Wadlington's Thinking Texas Football 2025 Longhorn Football Prospectus. Every position, every player, every opponent, every SEC team, a look at the landscape of college football, and of course, a look at the 2025 recruiting class from our own Eric Naline. So, RT, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Reheat, the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.